Don't get me wrong, there are some traps on this week's waiver wire, but I just submitted 3 claims myself. My waiver's going to run on Monday night, and I'll let you know everything that happens. But anyway, let's talk about the top ads. You already know these names, right? Kamani Vidal is the starting running back for the Los Angeles Chargers. We had to call our shot last week between Haskins and Vidal, and I completely airballed. I thought it was going to be Hassan Haskins. Projections said it was going to be Haskins. Reporters said it was going to be Haskins. And what ended up happening, they went with the hot hand. The hot hand was Kamani Vidal, and he actually looked very good. He had over 100 rushing yards, 124 rushing yards to be exact. And we know, based off his time in college, is actually a capable receiving running back. So he comes through. He has 4 targets, 18 carries, 22 total opportunities. And a big thing that came out Sunday morning was that Amari Hampton is missing more than 4 weeks. If you were thinking that we were going to get back Amari Hampton in week 9, well, think again. You're probably not going to see Amari Hampton get back until closer to actually the fantasy football playoffs. And until then, Vidal is very much a viable running back that you can go through and rank in my rest of season rankings as an RB3, but in my weekly rankings, until you end up getting back Hampton, he's probably going to be a borderline low-end RB2/flex play that a lot of people are going to be desperate for, just considering how bad the injuries are in the NFL at this point. I currently have him ranked as my RB34 rest of season, but again, he's probably going to be a lot higher than that in terms of where we are putting him in our week 7 rankings. If you look at the underlying snap data, you'll see this from PFF that you actually had Hassan Haskins with only 20 snaps comparison to Vidal with 43. You had Vidal with 5 of the third down snaps in comparison to Haskins with only 2. But Vidal was also used as the early down running back in addition to the third down one. Now let's move over to our next RB. If you were in the Sunday morning live stream with us, you knew that you should have been on top of picking up Bam Knight. Now, Adam Schefter came through and he said that Bam Knight was going to be the starting running back for the Arizona Cardinals on Sunday. Now, technically, it doesn't matter who was the starter and who was the backup, because the reality is they played the same amount of snaps. You had 37 versus 32. If you look at the usage, Bam Knight had 11 carries in comparison to Michael Carter at 9. Now, it isn't super easy to just say like, oh, Bam Knight's going to run away with this. The reason being is you do still have Michael Carter operating as the receiving back. If you look at this snap breakdown from PFF, you'll see that Michael Carter played 5 third down snaps in comparison to Bam Knight with only 1. But what Bam Knight gave you was he actually gave you the goal line in the early down role. Bam Knight is going to be the first and second down back, and Michael Carter is going to be the running back on third down, as well as the 2-minute drill. Dermacado is nothing at this point. You had the mistake 2 days ago. Now you have the ankle injury that he's dealing with as well. Now, am I going to sit here and say that Bam Knight is a league-winning running back? He's the next Rico Dowdle? Of course not. He's the RB40 in our rest of season rankings. Carter's the RB41, because ultimately it's a 50-50 backfield split with 2 untalented players in a bad offense. Now, moving over and looking at Tyjae Spears. Brian Callahan just got fired from the Tennessee Titans. So I'm not going to be surprised whatsoever if we end up seeing some changes made with Tennessee overall. And one of those changes could be the transition from Tony Pollard to Tyjae Spears, where Pollard's been horribly inefficient so far this year. If we go through and we look at what Tony Pollard has actually given you from a per touch perspective, he is currently sitting here as the RB31 despite averaging over 15 carries per game and averaging over 2 targets per game. What's also going to be very interesting to note as well is Tony Pollard just saw a season low 10 carries, and you actually had Tyjae Spears coming through with a considerable amount of receiving usage. Tyjae Spears had 4 targets in this game in comparison to Tony Pollard with only 2. Tyjae Spears has immediately come in and actually been the more efficient RB. And if you look at the split with these 2 running backs at this point, it's very clear. Pollard is the early down player, playing 17 snaps to Tajay Spears' 6, and Spears is going to be the guy in the 2-minute drill, playing 23 snaps in comparison to Tony Pollard at only 7. A player that I'm going to have to add to the waiver wire video is Luther Burden. I didn't expect this, but you actually had DJ Moore staying the night at the hospital in the DC area. So realistically, it seems like Luther Burden may actually have some opportunities now in Chicago. If you don't know the Luther Burden profile, this was a wide receiver that dynasty drafters before the combine were speaking in the same sentence as Tetairoa McMillan. Super strong prospect profile, was a dominant player in college as a true sophomore, goes to the NFL draft. A lot of people think is going to be a round 1 pick. He ends up actually sliding to the top of round 2. The Chicago Bears select him, even though they already have Rome Odunze and DJ Moore on the roster. So clearly Ben Johnson and this coaching staff like what they saw, and he had actually been a hyper productive wide receiver so far. If you were just looking at the production per route, the issue had been it was just impossible for him to get on the field given the fact that DJ Moore and Rome Odunze, the 2 veterans, were blocking his path. But if DJ Moore misses any time, you were actually going to have Luther Burden with an opportunity for once. And you can throw in the fact that the Chicago Bears schedule going into the future is extremely favorable for these wide receivers. He would be my #1 waiver wire pickup at wide receiver, ahead of the guys like Tez Johnson, if you truly did need somebody with upside. Now let's go over to some of the traps that I know y'all will look to pick up. And these are going to be at the wide receiver position. Now, y'all know my favorite thing to do all offseason is play in underdog best ball drafts. I mean, I am drafting underdog best ball teams every single day from the day of the NFL draft to the day of the start of the season. And these wide receivers can give you random spike weeks. And in that format, they're amazing. Now, obviously, if you wanted to hop in an underdog basketball draft, you actually can right now. But also, Underdog does have pick'em contest available for in season. And if you're not already on Underdog Fantasy, it's not too late. You can still join with the link in the description as well as the comment section. If you use code FLOCK when you sign up to Underdog Fantasy, you're going to be getting $100 added to your account after you play your first 5. And on top of that, you're going to be getting a free Jalen Warren pick, higher, lower, half a total yard for the Thursday night game. And you'll get free questions that you can ask me in the live streams. And I'm live streaming every single day until Christmas, answering your questions. But looking at these wide receivers that are much better for Underdog than they are for your real life team, I understand Hollywood Brown has himself a day on Sunday night with everybody watching. And if you started him, obviously he kind of saved you with 20 fantasy points. But Hollywood did this off of 4 targets. And you have Rashee Rice back this next week. I have Hollywood ranked as my wide receiver 51 in my rest of season ranks. And honestly, even this is probably too high. Even this, we probably got to move him lower. He's not viable. Jordan Whittington is a wide receiver that I promise you, I swear to God, I used to see walking around the UT campus all the time. I had a biology class, I want to say it was my sophomore year, maybe it was my junior year, that he actually walked into. And I knew I was following Texas big time way. I went to the University of Texas. I knew that he was, our new big high school wide receiver recruit. I looked it up. The kid was still supposed to be in high school, but he left high school early to come to the University of Texas. Walking around looking like a grown-ass man at 17 years old, looking like a middle linebacker playing wide receiver. I'm rooting for Jordan Whittington. The Puka Nacua injury all of a sudden is going to make it where he's playing a ton. You can see this chart from PFF that shows that he's playing more than ever, but truly, who cares? Are you really going to go through and put him in your starting lineup? Do you have that type of confidence? No, you should not. Everything's going to get funneled through Devontae Adams as well as Kyron Williams. They have the week 8 bye for the Rams. So realistically, you just put out a little timetable here. You're not starting Jordan Whittington in week 7 unless you are literally insane. So you're going to pick him up to put him on your bench in week 7 to see what he does. Then the Rams are going to have week 8 bye, and then you're maybe going to play him in week 9 if Puka Nacua is not back by then. So don't pick him up. And then the 2 guys that I know a lot of people are going to be interested in will be Sterling Shepard and Tez Johnson. And I'm going to let y'all know, I am a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan from this point onwards. Baker Mayfield is the most exciting player in the NFL. What he is doing right now with Godwin, Evans, Egbuka, and Jalen McMillan all injured is incredible. Not to mention, you have no Bucky Irving. Not to mention that your left tackle was injured coming into this season. Like, Baker Mayfield he looks better than Josh Allen right now from real life perspective. Now, obviously I have Allen on my fantasy team, so hopefully he doesn't hear that. But anyway, if we're looking at Sterling Shepard versus Tez Johnson, how are you going to pick the right guy? Tez Johnson has the big receiving touchdown. Sterling Shepard has the historical volume and the historical connections to Baker Mayfield. So I wouldn't be surprised at all if one of these wide receivers turns out to be something. But for us to be able to actually predict which one's gonna be viable, it's nearly impossible. So I would rather not pick up either of the Buccaneers wide receivers, just because I think, at least for me, myself, I would 100% make the wrong decision. Now, going over and looking at what we have for tight ends, Cade Otton is going to be a great pickup here, because we've seen historically Cade Otton actually be a viable option. The issue that you had with him in Tampa this season was there was just too many wide receivers he was going to have to compete with. But now, with the multitude of injuries that you've had over the past 2 weeks, Cade Otton's actually combined for about 132 receiving yards. Over the past 2 weeks, he's actually had 11 total targets. And now that you have Igbuka out of this offense, I'm very confident in starting Cade Otton, assuming that you're going to get a minimum of 6 targets over the next few weeks. And then by the time you get to the week 9 bye, you can go ahead and cut him and you can stream a different tight end. I wouldn't be as excited about Cade Otton, though, as I would be with our next option, Harold Fannin. Harold Fannin is looking like he's going to be taking a step upwards for 2 different reasons. One, David Njoku just got injured. But 2, you go back and you look at the reports that were coming out of Cleveland before the game on Sunday. They were telling us that David Njoku is probably going to get traded anyway. So if David Njoku is on the trade block and now dealing with a miscellaneous injury, and Harold Fannin is playing a career high snaps, routes run, target, like, Harold Fannin looks like he could legitimately be a tight end 1 rest of the way. Then Gadsden, I know that a lot of people have been asking me to pick him up over the past few weeks. I hadn't been interested just because I didn't really see where the upside was going to come from. But now we can actually see him cross over, and he's playing a career high 75% of the snaps for the Los Angeles Chargers. And all of a sudden he is viable. And then lastly, looking at some DST streamers, there are a couple interesting names to go out there. Obviously, the Denver Broncos would be great. The Chiefs would be great. The Patriots would be the best DST imaginable. Look at the upcoming New England Patriots schedule, and you can just drool about how good it's going to be, starting with the Tennessee Titans this week. The Cleveland Browns get to play the Dolphins. The Steelers get to play the Cincinnati Bengals. The Seahawks get to play the Texans. The Packers, obviously, you're always starting them. The team that I currently have a bid in right now for will be the Chicago Bears, because a lot of the good defenses are already rostered in my league. Chicago looked good, creating some takeaways against Jaden Daniels on Monday night. And this matchup you get is going to be going up against the New Orleans Saints. So it's a decent little spot for Chicago. And then outside of that, if you're looking at kickers, I have a bid in for a kicker right now. I'm not going to say it. Maybe the editor can throw it up on the screen, but I don't want him to know until that actually runs, because he's my secret weapon. And that's how I'm going to be winning week 7. But I think that's all I got for you. I really appreciate you. And of course, if you wanted to check out any of those Underdog pick'ems, you always can in the link with the description, as well as the comment section. If you use code FLOCK when you sign up to Underdog Fantasy, you are going to be getting the best new user offer that they have had in the 5 years I've been working with them. And that's $100 added to your account after you play your first 5. Plus, on top of that, you'll be getting a free Jalen Warren pick, higher, lower, half a total yard for the Thursday night game. And you'll be getting free questions that you can ask me in the live streams. And I'm live streaming every single day until Christmas, answering those free questions. Underdog Fantasy available in almost every state. And they are right now at the top of the App Store among all sports apps, because these promos are so insane. But I think that's all I got for you. I really appreciate you, and really hope I get to see you out with the live stream later tonight.